Right now, search and recovery missions stretch into the night after a deadly and historic storm cripples the tri-state area. Tonight, we're also learning more about an explosion that leveled a home in New Jersey. Good evening, everyone. I'm Maurice Dubois, and we begin here with the devastation that came into focus today after the remnants of Hurricane Ida unleashed raging floodwaters on us and powerful tornadoes across the area. And the storm has been deadly. 23 people have been killed in New Jersey. 13 have died in New York City, and 2 deaths have been reported in Westchester County. And in Connecticut, a state trooper died after being swept away by floodwaters in his patrol car. Take a look at this scene in Manville, New Jersey. 2 homes burst into flames in a neighborhood surrounded by floodwaters. This as first responders had to use boats and ladders to rescue people from second-floor windows. These are scenes playing out across the tri-state area all day today. Rescuers working around the clock since Ida hit. CBS 2's Jessica Layton joins us now from Cranford. Jessica.
Well, Maurice, tonight here in Cranford, it is a much-needed rest after a day of chaotic rescues. We're told more than 200 people had to be rescued last night and overnight. Now, tonight, although it is receding, there is still floodwater here. Streets are still flooded. And then over here, cars that were abandoned nearly 24 hours ago are still sitting with no owner in sight. And now it's time for the cleanup to begin.
We're not a flood zone, so we don't have flood insurance, so we're out of pocket on everything that we just renovated.
On this day after the storm, the emotions have been overwhelming, just like the floodwater that gushed through Jenna Ross's newly renovated home Wednesday night.
It just kept coming and coming, and we went upstairs, and it just 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. It was just unreal.
Leaving their dinner dishes on the table, they raced upstairs with the dog. Now the light of day revealing the damage and destruction suffered all over Somerville.
Our living room set, I had just gotten stuff out of my parents' house, so a lot of my childhood stuff is out here. I'm a teacher, so all of my teaching stuff is gone.
Block by block, soaked pieces of roofing and wood line residential roads that took on up to 8 feet of water from the nearby Peters Brook, where a car remains submerged. And it's not just property that was tossed. There are memories mixed in with the mess, pictures, even a prayer card.
I mean, I've never seen anything like this before.
The Hunkleys were trapped in their home as Ida came raging through. In fact, this 45-year-old father says it was the scariest night of his life.
Last night, it was like a real emergency situation because when we couldn't get out, the fire trucks came. There was 2 firemen, not the fire trucks, there were 2 firemen in the backyard, waist deep in water. They're like, you got to get out now.
One of the most frightening moments when the neighbor's house blew up at the height of the storm. And surveillance video captured another house explosion in Rahway. In both cases, the families had already evacuated because of flooding. Sadly, not the case in Elizabeth. When the river crested, it sent water about 10 feet high, stranding many in their ground floor apartments.
I heard her screaming, and she was like, help me, help me. I said, are you okay?
The mayor says 4 people in that apartment complex died, but many were saved. In a chaotic-looking Cranford, rescue boats arrived for people trapped in cars and homes by the overflowing Rahway River. More than 200 people needed help.
Completely flooded for the first floor. My walls are destroyed.
So the water here on this street is still about ankle high, which is a big improvement from about 24 hours ago, Maurice. Neighbors here tell me at that time last night, the water was rising to the waist and chest of many people. So scary as they had to call for help and be rescued. A lot of people saying, though, because of all the damage, they cannot stay in their homes for the foreseeable future. They are desperate for help from FEMA. The Ross family that I introduced to you earlier in that story tonight says they'll be staying at a hotel for the next few nights, then just trying to figure it all out. We're live in Cranford, New Jersey tonight. Jessica Layton, CBS 2 News.
Okay, Jessica, thank you.
The deluge of rain from Ida walloped the North Shore Peninsula of Long Island. Communities suffered severe damage when a possible tornado carved a path and toppled trees onto homes. Our CBS 2's Jennifer McLogan was in Suffolk County there, where she spoke to one couple that said that they barely escaped.
That is where we were, in that bed.
Sound asleep.
Sound asleep, This thing came down. We were still sound asleep.
Peter and Ginger Murphy, both 82 years old, never thought Ida's remnants would bring such wrath to their beloved Lloyd Neck community.
Anyway, we're happy to be alive.
Yeah.
And
they like to think it was divine intervention that spared them when their 80-foot hardwood oak weighing several tons came crashing through the roof where they lay sleeping. Son Mark was upstairs.
Heard the trees starting to snap like twigs. And then I heard the crash.
Mark kicked open the door and came in, and then I saw this tree right in front of me.
I kind of carried my mom over the tree and then helped my father out with his cane.
As the community plunged into powerlessness, first responders arrived throughout, assisting PSEG secure live wires. National Weather Service meteorologists are here inspecting damage, some catastrophic, that blew through a 1 square mile area adjacent to Long Island Sound.
It could be a microburst, it could be a water spout, it could be a tornado. We'll leave that to the National Weather Service.
Nearby historic Comset State Park closed up, path of destruction.
We have hundreds of uprooted trees. We have trees that have been twisted. We have trees that had the tops broken off.
The Murphys' neighborhood is ravaged.
That's what it was a twister.
They're lucky to be alive.
we'll pick up the pieces and keep going.
It will take days to clear trees and months to repair damage. From Long Island's North Shore, Jennifer McLogan, CBS 2 News.
If you got out on the roads today, you saw the destruction firsthand. Cars littering highways, left behind by drivers who just couldn't make it through all the floodwaters. CBS 2's Allie Bauman along the Major Deegan in the Bronx tonight, where we see some traffic actually moving. Allie.
That's right, Maurice. We pulled over on the northbound side of the Major Deegan Expressway by West 234th Street, where on the southbound side, the lanes are still closed because of flooding and because of, take a look, all of these tractor trailers and vehicles that have been stuck here for about 20 hours at this point. And the crews, you can see, are working to try to tow them away, but still a long way to go. The NYPD says more than 580 vehicles have been towed all across the city since last night, and there's still many more to go. Dozens and dozens of stalled vehicles have been stranded on the still flooded Major Deegan Expressway since last night, and it seems most major roadways in our area are still littered with abandoned cars.
NYPD is way backed up, so I came to move one of my clients' cars.
PJ Marcel of Trackside Collision in Queens says he's towed more than 70 cars since last night, including this one, which floodwaters swept up on the guardrail along the Grand Central Parkway with the driver still inside.
They climbed out of the sunroof and they walked to safety where a motoring passenger vehicle passed by and grabbed them and took them off the exit.
Over on Staten Island, Andre Farkash came out looking for his truck in the daylight.
Yeah, I was sitting here. The water was up here.
He had to leave the truck, which was stuck in flooding, when emergency responders helped him escape.
I couldn't open the door. The water is already this high.
And last night, NYPD officers carried a livery cab driver to safety. He was stuck in floodwater on the 65th Street Transverse in Central Park. A car at this Exxon gas station in Whitestone, Queens was crushed when heavy rainfall took down the overhead canopy. Thankfully, the driver was paying inside the market at the time and no one was injured.
The poor person whose ever car that is, I feel bad for them.
Now, we've pulled over here on the northbound side behind these 2 or 3 vehicles here in front of us that have been abandoned and are very dusty because of how dusty and dirty the road here is. And all around the city, we've noticed how dusty and muddy the roads are because, you know, the floodwaters have gone down, but the dirt is still there. But then on the other side of the road there, if you want to go back to the roof can, that line of tractor trailers goes down beyond that overpass in front of us there. It is going to be a long night for these tow trucks here that are out here. Now, the DOT says if your vehicle has been towed and you don't know where it is now, call 311. For now, we're live on the Major Deegan Expressway in the Bronx. Allie Bauman, CBS 2 News.
Never been this happy to see traffic on the Deegan. Allie, thank you so much.
Right now, the day after this destructive evening tonight across the tri-state, I'm Michael Gorgio in for Adam Cooperstein. As far as the eye can see, flooding, tornado damage, and sadly, nearly 24 people dead after the remnants of Ida unleashed fury in our area. There's a lot going on, so let's bring you up with the very latest right now. We're just learning now 14 people lost their lives in New Jersey during last night's flooding. Another 9 deaths now reported in New York City. In a matter of just 1 hour, more than 3 inches of rain fell in Central Park. The previous record was under 2 inches. Central Park getting a total of 7.19 inches of rain from Ida. That makes it the 5th wettest day in Central Park's history. We have live News 4 team coverage of this deadly flooding all across our area. We're going to start in Elizabeth, New Jersey with Chris Glorioso, where, Chris, we've just learned of the 5 people found dead in the Oakwood Plaza apartments. Chris.
Michael, let me begin. The mayor just made an amendment just minutes ago to that tally. At this point, they believe there are 4 fatalities. 2 people in their 30s, 2 people in their 70s, but still a gut-wrenching tragedy here in Elizabeth. Let me set the scene for you. We are on Irvington Avenue in Elizabeth, and you can see this is the remnants from last night. These are vehicles that are yards and yards away from this enormous apartment complex, and the waters from the Elizabeth River just tossed cars like toy boats. Now, as I mentioned, there are those 4 deaths, but there are also efforts to search the Elizabeth River itself because there are concerns that someone could possibly have been swept up in the river. They're going to use drones. They're going to search the riverbanks. At this point, the only bit of good news is that there are no current reports of people missing. But again, it continues to be a chaotic scene. And when the Elizabeth River crashed over its banks, entire first-floor apartments were inundated. The fire director says hundreds of people were evacuated last night. As I said, though, they were unable to get to those 4 people that died, 2 of them in their 70s, 2 of them in their 30s. 600 people in this complex now homeless. The mayor says they are preparing 3 schools as shelters, but there are real concerns about COVID spread if they have people congregating in those shelters, so they are attempting to expedite housing vouchers for people that may be able to get housing elsewhere. Needless to say, the residents here are experiencing intense grief and frustration.
They put the sandbags down. The water was just so overwhelming that the water came into my apartment. We need shelter, we need food, we need clothes, we need it all. Cars, everything. This whole area was flooded.
We want to hear the water just go swoosh. So we all trying to evacuate. And as once again, I know FEMA, nobody's here.
Back live in Elizabeth, where you are looking at a series of school buses, those buses lined up to offer people rides to those temporary shelters at public schools if people are willing to take those buses. But at this point, we've talked to a lot of the residents here. They say they are very concerned about potential COVID spread. So many of them wondering where they're going to be sleeping tonight. Many of them experienced absolute gut-wrenching scenes last night, not only seeing those rescue crews finally getting into units where they found the 4 people who were confirmed dead, but also people barely making it out of those first-floor units. It's just a very difficult scene out here. Tensions are running high. We're going to continue to bring you updates, but this is just an awful scene in Elizabeth, New Jersey. For now, reporting live, Chris Glorioso, News 4 New York.
Chris, thank you very much for that. We want to go to another difficult scene. This is Jamaica, Queens, where there are 2 confirmed deaths in a basement apartment. News 4's Paisy Chang has been there all morning long. Paisy, Senator Schumer, Governor Hochul, Borough President Richards, and of course Mayor de Blasio, they're right with you. They've come here because of the tragedy that happened here.
That's right, Michael. In fact, this news conference is still underway. Reporters are getting to ask questions at this point. But here's a closer look at what we're talking about. This is the side of the house that a gaping hole was formed by the floodwater. Now, this floodwater was not just standing in the street. It was rapid. It was moving. It was several feet high, and it gushed, and it was something that they've never seen before. The water gushed into this basement apartment once it formed a hole, inundating the apartment several feet high. Now, water got into a lot of basements on this street, but the water rushed in so quickly because of the hole that was formed. That's likely why the individuals inside that apartment were unable to get out. They really just did not have a chance. And what's even more sad about this is that neighbors say the father and the son were able to get out of the house because they were moving cars. They were planning to get get out of this apartment and evacuate because of the storm. The mother and the other son, the 45-year-old woman and the 22-year-old son, were still downstairs gathering belongings, and they were on their way up when this hole formed. And once the water gushed in, they really had no chance. Both the governor and the mayor addressed what happened here.
We're here today because of a devastating storm that shocked the people of this city. And even the morning after, we're still uncovering the true depth of the loss. And their families must just be in such pain this morning. So to all of them, we offer our love, our condolences, and our wishes for their healing. And we'll be there to support them.
The brutality of storms now, it is different. A record set 2 weeks ago, another record set now, rainfall like we haven't seen ever before. This is the biggest wake-up call we could possibly get.
Oh, sorry. And that is certainly concerning. And, you know, neighbors here are saying, while this news conference is happening, they're basically shouting at the mayor and the governor, what are you going to do for us? We've had water in our basement this week. Those storms before, we had water in the basement as well. They're telling us that they've been working on the drains on this street for a year now, and still such severe flooding is happening. So we're going to try to get some answers as well. For now, we're live from Jamaica. Paisley Chang, News 4 New York.
And certainly the people there wanted answers as well. Paisley, thank you so much for that. Well, we want to go back to New Jersey. We want to go over New Jersey right now because Chopper 4's Kai Simonson has a bird's eye view of the massive flooding there. And Kai, you see a rescue boat underway right now.
Yes, absolutely, Michael, and this is what we've been seeing pretty much all morning in places like Manville and other sections of New Jersey. We've been telling you, and you can see as I come out a little bit with the camera here, this entire neighborhood is flooded. Manville, New Jersey, I would say about half of the town is now underwater. What strikes me about this event, folks, is the fact of how widespread the flooding is. Places like Manville, places like Hillsborough, Somerville, Bound Brook, New Jersey, unfortunately, we have become to expect flooding like this from time to time here in New Jersey. And we expect lots of flooding in New Jersey from time to time in other areas. But what we're seeing here from Chopper 4 this morning is such a widespread flooding event. Places like Elizabeth, Linden, Cranford, places that we usually don't see this level of flooding happening, that's where we're seeing it. So again, we're seeing numerous rescues by boat. We saw a little bit earlier a rescue by a state police helicopter. This is off of the roof. We're going to bring you some pictures here of some images that we recorded. This is on the roof of the STS tire facility. This is the corporate offices that are located not far from here in Bridgewater, New Jersey. And you can see an employee, no doubt, this poor guy spent the entire night in that building waiting to be rescued. That building completely surrounded by water. And we are also hearing about further rescues like this that are happening at that building. And we'll get over there in a few more minutes. Back to the live pictures here. You can see once again a wider view of Manville, New Jersey. This entire area, we are seeing examples of this, just absolute devastation. Of course, we will continue to keep you up to date. In Chopper 4, I'm Kai Simonson. Michael, back on over to you.
Kai, just shocking live pictures there showing the extent of that flooding. But what a difference in the southern part of the state. Let's go to New Jersey. News 4 New Jersey reporter Brian Thompson. Brian, you're in Mullica Hill. You had a chance just to talk to Governor Murphy with some of the other reporters there. And in the south, it's tornado damage like in the building behind you.
Yeah, and they've never seen anything like this here. We've rarely seen anything like this in New Jersey at all, and nobody can remember it anyway. We have 14 dead across the state. That was what a law enforcement source told me just a few minutes ago. The governor would not use that number. But after he finished his news conference, he went into his SUV and took a call from the president. When he came out, I was standing there. I asked him, what did the president say? He said he expects the president will expedite New Jersey's request to FEMA for a major disaster declaration. That request will go in later this afternoon, and we'll see what happens then. Now, as far as the damage here in Mullica Hill, it is substantial. Homes are destroyed, half destroyed. They'll have to be torn down. There's no question about it. The good news is there are no fatalities. The mayor tells me in one house, however, a pregnant woman, 8 months pregnant, was just inches away from death when the house collapsed on her, but she did manage to get out. So he was very thankful. No fatalities again here in Mullica Hill. And at this point, they believe that that will be the case throughout the rest of the day. Now, as for the governor himself, he admits he has never seen anything like this, and that includes homeowners.
You know, an extraordinary
sadly tragic, historic 24 hours in New Jersey. There's no other way to put it. Needless to say, look on either side of us right now and the impact of these tornadoes that touched down.
Next thing I know, I started hearing like a noise, and I saw through the smaller window that we have in the basement, kind of like a lot of wind, and I heard like a rumbling noise, and I quickly just ran to the entrance of the basement and yelled to my wife and my son, "Get down here right away! Get down here right away!" And then my wife was nearby. She was closing the door, and as she was closing the door literally, came off the hinge.
Now, here's a closer look at the Lopez house. As you can see, it looks like parts of it are still standing, actually. But I talked to an insurance adjuster, and he said, no, this is going to have to go. There is just too much structural damage to the sides, to the roof, to the bent walls. He said, this is a total loss. Now, back to a live picture. You can see that same house behind me here. And I can tell you this. I just talked to the mayor as we're ready to go on live here in Harrison Township, and he tells me they believe 100 homes suffered some sort of damage in this community. 20 or so are going to be total losses. That's how bad this tornado was in South Jersey. Live in Mullica Hill, Brian Thompson, News 4 New York.
Brian, before I let you go, I want to ask you about something in the exchange you had with the governor. You talked about his concern and the concern expressed by other officials at that press conference about the wider effects of climate change causing these storms and what needs to be done about it.
Yeah, and I asked him if this would accelerate efforts to battle climate change. I mean, New Jersey has been pretty progressive on this. They want to get all electric cars by 2035. They're trying to get to net zero in that time frame or so. But I said to the governor, does this make you think, because you keep saying that, well, this is happening more frequently and more intensely, is this going to make you think to intensify those efforts, to speed them up some? He said, absolutely. Not with any specifics, but he did say absolutely this sort of thing needs to be accelerated because of the climate crisis. This storm is indicating we're facing just a week and a half after Henri caused all that flooding here in New Jersey.
Absolutely. All right, Brian, thank you very much for that. We do want to stay in New Jersey now, but we want to go to Passaic, where the frantic search is going on for a woman swept away in the floodwaters. This is Benson and Main Avenues, and News 4's Miles Miller is there with the very latest. Miles.
Michael, we are told that firefighters and sheriff's scuba team officers are going to be going in the water here. You see that they're doing the work of raking away some of that shrub, some of the leaves over there, all in an effort to go in and investigate after a woman was seen atop her car last night, right where you're seeing them working, screaming for her life. I want to show you a video we obtained from a person in the neighborhood, and when there is audio on that video, it is chilling to hear that woman scream for dear life. There were 6 feet of water in the middle of Main Avenue here in Passaic, and people could not do anything to rescue her without harming their own lives. At some point, that woman climbs to the top of her car, and then police believe she winds up in that small brook there that then feeds into the Passaic River. Of course, the Passaic River last night was at a level that was just too much for anyone to stand up to bear. It was, of course, over flooded, and now they're going in their Zodiac boats to try to see if they can find that woman at any point in the Passaic River. Listen now from what her cousin had to say about all of this.
Her real sister find the location from Snapchat or something, so that's how they come to know, like, the location shows here. So they were here and they see the raid car was here, and then they call the cops.
Our firefighters continue investigating the whereabouts of the individuals. The family members were in City Hall. Divers will be back out into the river. Again, we continue to receive reports of incidents that occurred throughout the city. Now, vehicles can be repaired and property can be replaced, but loss of life, we can't bring that back.
We are inland in Passaic, right now, but the major issues happened in the downtown area with a lot of flooding in streets, in the numbered streets, as well as flooding in basements there, as well as stranding so many people. We know that 60 people were evacuated from their homes. We also know that a man died as a result of being swept away in 6 feet of water. Back now to a live picture here in Benson Park, just to show you what's going to happen. They are going inside that fire truck right there, and they're going to be getting some equipment to get out all they need to go inside that water and see if that woman is still inside that water. They know that it was a report that she may have gone in the water, but they have to confirm that, and so they're going in the water right now. It's important to note that just about last year, a woman's car did go into the water, and she was able to be found on the other side, and she survived. That's what police are hoping to happen in this instance. So they're going to go in and do that work right now. We'll have more coming up when I see you again in about a half hour. We're live in the city of Passaic. I'm Miles Miller, News 4.
Miles, thanks again. Certainly hoping for a positive outcome there.
A flash flooding siege in the Northeast. States of emergency in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Multiple deaths reported as the remnants of Ida merged with the front to produce chaos. For the first time in recorded history, the National Weather Service issuing a flash flood emergency for all 5 boroughs of New York City. More than 7 inches of rain in just a few hours. The Western Hemisphere's busiest subway system shut down. Waterfalls pouring down station stairs, trains pulling in to find platforms submerged. People wading through waist-high water, above ground stranded cars, and water rescues everywhere.
FDNY members rescuing someone who has been trapped in that Jeep for now well over an hour.
Our New York station, WABC, right there, as a man was finally brought to safety. And in Queens, a partial building collapse, at least 2 people killed. And at Newark Airport in New Jersey, the wettest day ever recorded. Flooding taking over baggage claim terminals, hundreds of flights canceled. Passaic, New Jersey Mayor Hector Lora pleading during the storm for people to stay inside.
We have too many areas where the flooding has gotten so bad that cars are stuck and we have bodies underwater. We are now retrieving bodies.
The same system torturing southern New Jersey and Pennsylvania earlier in the evening with at least 6 tornadoes.
Look at that tornado!
Nearly 25 homes in Mullica Hill, a total loss. Others shredded.
See branches start to get carried by the wind past my house. The chair on our front porch got flipped, and it was nuts.
In Horsham, Pennsylvania, the storm uprooting trees, tipping semis. And in Allegheny County, 41 people, mostly students, in this bus rescued. Attributing the frequency of these extreme rainfall events to human-caused climate change.
In reality, what was once the 100-year flood, the flood that had about a 1% chance of happening any given year, isn't the 100-year flood anymore.
And listen to this. You have to see this video again from 6 ABC in Philadelphia. Over the Schuylkill River, just because the rain has pulled away does not mean that the flooding is going to stop. That river expected to hit a record high in the next 48 hours. We will see more flooding, especially along rivers here in the Northeast. We had more than 8 inches of rain widespread happen in just 2 to 3 hours. Y'all, that is called flash flooding. It is receding now quickly behind me as we speak. But unfortunately, behind it, we will see debris. And I think the question we now will have is, how do we live sustainably? How do we make permeable roads? How do we live in this new extreme reality?
Pool. I have no idea. I didn't take the water out. Who knows what it's going to look like.
Me too. I'm in West Animal Township, about an hour away from here. And we've been here for about 30 hours, so I don't know. Oh my gosh. Nothing I can do. Like, nothing I can do.
try and make it over there today.
It's weird at night because like you didn't know where it was. Cars, like that you saw things in the distance, like that car that saw some lights on back there.
I have an in-ground pool. I have no idea. I didn't take the water out. Who knows what it's going to look like?
Me too. I'm in West Animal Township, about an hour away from here. And we've been here for about 30 hours, so I don't know. Nothing I can do. Like, nothing I can do.
I'll try and make it over there today.
It's weird at night because like you didn't know where it was. Cars, like that you saw things in the distance, like that car that saw some lights on back there.
I have an in-ground pool. I have no idea. I didn't take the water out. Who knows what it's going to look like?
Me too. I'm in West Animal Township, about an hour away from here. And we've been here for about 30 hours, so I don't know. Nothing I can do. Like, nothing I can do.
I'll try and make it over there today.
It's weird at night because like you didn't know where it was. Cars, like that you saw things in the distance, like that car that saw some lights on back there.
Running it down on these niggas. Sex, drugs, money, and murder, my nigga. You know how we did it, my nigga. Still be painting them bitches, my nigga. Ripping that roll, who fucking your bitches. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. 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 Niggas, they never will hurt you. Niggas, they never will hurt you. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. Sex, drugs, money, and murder.
Got the traps right, understand how to get that. Ran down on them niggas with a flip back, new and together again.
Back together again. I like that song. That's a good song. Roberta Flack, Donny Hathaway. And then I like the remake with Melissa Morgan and Freddie Jackson. You know, 50 did it. With Paper Chaser. Scary record. If you don't know that record, go listen to it. So, okay, we back with another video. This is talk about Hurricane Ida. What I have to say about Hurricane Ida and the global warming that's going on. It has done a number. Before it came to the north, it was in the south, near the Delta, New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Memphis. It was in all those parts. It left there and it came straight to Washington, Maryland, Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York. And it did a number on New York and New Jersey. As you see, it was massive flooding in New York, a lot of flooding in New Jersey, a lot of flooding in Maryland, a lot of flooding in Pennsylvania. It did a lot of damage. This hurricane has done a lot of damage, as you can see. Watching it on the news, it's just. It was worse than what Sandy, because Hurricane Sandy was crazy, but this right here it did a number, and a lot of people lost their lives. I think it was a couple people lost their lives in Queens, Jersey, and even Long Island and upstate New York, and the catastrophe that it did, just looking at it, the after effects, it was crazy. And it just was a storm for one day. And what it did in one night is crazy, especially with the tornadoes, the winds, the massive flooding. If you look at the train stations, the Bronx had a lot of flooding. It was like up to people's like right here. Like people was, had to get police to save them out of their house. The EMT, the police saved like 400 people in New York. In Jersey, it was just what I saw in Jersey and in New York with this Hurricane Ida is crazy. the equator is shifting. You know, I remember in school we was talking about global warming, and then I remember, you know, the whole thing that happened in 2012 with fishes dying and, you know, birds flying out the air dying and falling out the sky, and, you know, and and then, you know, hearing about what's going on in Antarctica, where things is the ice is melting, and, you know, the sun is very dangerous, with the instant heat waves, and basically the sun is a very, 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 it's not as what it was before. The sun is very dangerous now. It's just the weather is just showing you, like, the South getting snow, and, you know, a lot of the places, the West and the South is getting a lot of snow, a lot of cold weather that it didn't never got before. The North is getting a lot of warm weather. So what this really has showed me is that the equator is shifting. You know, Al Gore predicted this in 2004 when he did his documentary about global warming. The UN was talking about global warming. We neglected it because we as a people, we have not taken care of Earth. We have polluted it with garbage. If you look at a lot of these, look at the train stations, right? A lot of the stuff that was polluted, when I'm saying polluted, I mean the junk that has been polluted in the sewer system, the sewer lines, is so much pollution that when the thing bust last night in the train station, this is quite a few times this has happened, but when it bust last night, watching it on the news and then watching it with the media showing it again, it's crazy. What it shows is that people are not going green, and they are not preserving the earth. We are basically, you know, allowing us as people to contaminate the earth by what we're doing, by littering, by basically doing a lot of wrong things. Green energy, you know, all this gas, all this stuff is really having an effect on the earth, and Mother Nature is speaking to us and how we are going about things. You know, what is going on right now is just, it's an after effect. You know, and I remember Al Gore talking about the tornadoes, the hurricanes. He was talking about this in 2004, 2005, 2006. And now that it's happening now in 2021, we're acting like, wow, we're surprised by this. I'm not surprised by this. You know, people didn't do their due diligence and to take care of the earth. Instead, we allowed it to cluster and cluster and cluster. This is why, like I said, a lot of hurricanes are happening because of what we're doing to the earth. Hurricane Ida was crazy. A lot of people lost their life, just like a lot of people lost their lives in Sandy. It did a lot of damage to people's homes. I mean, trees fell into people's roofs and tore their ceiling. And, you know, it was one couple, an elderly couple, they were talking about a divine intervention, about God. And it was so close that they could have lost their lives because the tree was right in their bedroom. The tree branch, it broke off into their house, into their bedroom. And lucky thing, it didn't hit them in their bed. But this just goes to show you that, you know, this is a wake-up call, man. You know, everything that's going on is a wake-up call to society. You know, this Hurricane Ida, the pandemic that we had last year, these things is wake-up calls, man. We are not living right. We are not doing things right. We are not doing what we're supposed to do as a people. It's crazy. So I just wanted to talk about, Hurricane Ida. And really how it basically did a number, I'm just so glad that it didn't have massive flooding in my house. A lot of people had a lot of flooding in their homes. I had a little bit of water that came into my house, but thank God that we got good solid doors. But it was flooding going into, into some of the apartments. So I had to go to the other apartments that's next door, because we own both buildings. So I had to go to the building next door and clean up, make sure the roof and everything was good. But yeah, this hurricane was a doozy. I mean, Sandy was terrible. When we had Sandy, we was flooded out. And we had to fix our ceiling and our skyline because it was so much water. I'm just glad that not a lot of things destroyed. And plus, Sandy did a number even where I used to live, because I had like stuff in my storage and I lost a lot of my valuables. Was like gone. A lot of my valuable stuff, like videos that I had and certain movies and music, all that was like destroyed in Sandy. So I'm kind of glad that nothing got destroyed this time. So, this is crazy, man. You gotta have faith in God, man. You just gotta live right and do right, man, because tomorrow's never promised, man. The world that we living in is a crazy world, man. And sad to the people that lost their lives during this hurricane. My prayers go out to y'all families. It's crazy. Salute though.